Welcome to The Explainer. I want you to close your eyes for just a second. Imagine you're walking down a foggy, gaslit 19th century street. It's freezing cold, it's incredibly moody, and lurking somewhere in the intellectual shadows of this era is a philosopher who looked at the universe and saw, well, he basically saw a monster. Today, we're exploring the notoriously bleak yet just deeply, deeply fascinating philosophy of Arthur Schopenhauer. Because, if you've ever felt like life is just this exhausting treadmill of desires that never actually satisfy you, well, you are about to discover the metaphysical theory that explains exactly why you feel that way.
Schopenhauer once wrote something absolutely brutal. He said, "Our condition is so miserable that complete non-being would be decidedly preferable." He actually borrowed the spirit of this from Shakespeare's Hamlet to make a really devastating point. And he wasn't just being dramatic for the sake of it either. He was building a rigorous philosophical system here. So we're going to take a confessional, almost whispered descent into his radical cosmic pessimism. And we're going to understand exactly why a genius thinker sincerely believed that the universe is fundamentally rigged against our happiness.
Section 1. The Veil of Representation, Peering Behind the Illusion. Okay, let's dive into this. To really get Schopenhauer, we first have to realize he believed our daily reality is just a veil. Much like Immanuel Kant before him, he saw the world of space-time and cause and effect as an illusion, one that's completely structured by our own minds. But where Kant said the true underlying reality, the noumenon, is totally unknowable to us, Schopenhauer made this absolute genius pivot. And this brilliantly illustrates his departure. He realized we actually have a secret window into reality, and that window is our own bodies. We don't just perceive our bodies from the outside, we feel them from the inside. And what we feel from the inside isn't a bunch of multiple, disjointed things. It's one singular driving essence. He called this ultimate reality the will. Now, when Schopenhauer says will, he absolutely does not mean your conscious human choice to, say, go make a sandwich. Actually, scratch that. It's more like a blind, aimless, unconscious urge. It is an irrational energy forming the inner essence of the entire universe. Think of it this way. The exact same energy that makes a rock plummet to the ground because of gravity, that's the same energy that makes your body move. It's a dark, purposeless force lurking right behind the veil of all reality. It has no grand end goal. It just strives.
Section 2. The Pendulum of Suffering. The inescapable cycle of existence. Because the universe's core essence is this blind, purposeless urge, human existence is basically fundamentally trapped in misery. And here is the inevitable, step-by-step machinery of how that plays out. Step 1, you have a need, let's say thirst. Step 2, that need highlights a lack. Step 3, that lack manifests as suffering. Your throat is parched, it's super uncomfortable. Step 4, you finally get a glass of water. Brief satisfaction. Awesome, right? But then what happens? Step 5. Boredom. The satisfaction is incredibly short-lived, and you are left completely empty until the very next desire pops up. It is just a relentless, exhausting treadmill.
On one side of this pendulum, we have pain. It's that frantic, aching, clawing, lack of an unmet desire. It's the sheer anxiety of wanting something you don't have, the desperate striving to achieve, to acquire, to conquer. It is sharp, it is intensely active, and it is a fundamental manifestation of the will, constantly demanding more. And then, the pendulum swings. You finally get what you want, and you're left with boredom. The suffocating, deadening emptiness of having absolutely nothing left to strive for. It's that stagnant silence where you're just forced to sit with the meaningless void of existence. As Schopenhauer points out, human life just swings like a pendulum, backwards and forwards, between pain and boredom. Section 3. The Futility of Suicide. A False Exit.
So this brings us to a very dark but totally logical pivot. If life is truly this endless swing between agony and emptiness, driven by a blind monster of a will, is the answer to simply end a miserable life? I mean, you might think a philosopher of literal cosmic pessimism would say yes, but Schopenhauer actually takes a surprisingly firm stance against it.
So, the crucial point is that for Schopenhauer, suicide is a foolish illusion. Ending your life only destroys the individual phenomenon, your bodily representation. It leaves the core, metaphysical will completely untouched. He uses a brilliant analogy here. It's like a rainbow. The individual water drops that create the rainbow fall and disappear rapidly, but the rainbow itself remains perfectly stable. Suicide actually affirms the will to live, because the person doing it still desperately desires a happy life. They're just dissatisfied with their current conditions. It fails entirely to destroy the true source of cosmic pain.
Section 4, dim prospects for salvation, false exits and true escapes. Okay, so if taking our own lives doesn't work, Schopenhauer did offer a few narrow, somewhat ghostly pathways to salvation. The first escape route is aesthetic contemplation. When you look at a truly beautiful painting or a sublime landscape, something incredible happens. You stop looking at the world based on what it can do for you. You lose your selfish interests. You become a pure, will-less subject of cognition. You're no longer this hungry ego. You become a clear mirror reflecting the world. You momentarily step right off that relentless treadmill of desire.
Schopenhauer describes this moment with just profound beauty. He says, "We celebrate the Sabbath of the penal servitude of willing. The wheel of Ixion stands still. For that fleeting moment, while you are completely lost in a work of art, the pain stops. The heavy dragging chains of wanting and needing just fall away, leaving you in absolute, tranquil peace." Now, what's really interesting about this is that Schopenhauer actually created a strict hierarchy of the arts. He believed painting, sculpture, and architecture were mere copies of Platonic ideas, just shadows of reality, really. But music, he elevated music above absolutely all else. He believed music isn't a copy of an idea, it is a direct, immediate embodiment of the will itself. It speaks not of the shadow, but of the very essence of the universe.
But, as we know, art is only a temporary escape. For a more lasting solution, we have to look to ethics. The first ethical escape is compassion. When you realize that you and every other person, and animal for that matter, are all manifestations of the exact same suffering will, the whole illusion of individuality shatters. You literally feel their pain as your own. But the ultimate ethical response goes even further. And fair warning, Schopenhauer must have been an absolute joy at dinner parties, because his ultimate solution is asceticism.
Let's move to and see how this builds. Asceticism is the ultimate negation of the will to live. It is radical self-denial. Instead of constantly trying to satisfy endless desires, the ascetic deliberately extinguishes them. Schopenhauer says, normal people walk on this circular path of red-hot coals, just frantically trying to find the few cool spots. The ascetic sees the whole circle of hot coals and simply steps off.
But this brings us to the ultimate mystery of Schopenhauer's philosophy. Think about it. If our entire reality, our entire existence is made of the will, what exactly happens when the ascetic successfully starves and abolishes that will? What is possibly left for the person who has conquered the essence of the universe?
Nichts, nothingness, the final word of his great book. To those of us still full of desires, this state looks like an empty, terrifying void. But to the ascetic, who has finally escaped the penal servitude of the will, our entire real world, with all its galaxies and suns, is what becomes nothing. It leaves us with a haunting question to take away. Is true peace only found when we cease to be entirely?